This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, this is our first week of our Magic of Thinking Big book study. So I had notes. What did I do with my notes? Oh dear. So what would you ladies like to get out of reading this book? That was the first thing I wanted to ask.
My hope,
What are you hoping?
my hope is to get something new out of it that I haven't already read or already practiced. I think because I think I was hesitant to do this book because I have read so many mindset books, and as a life coach had to go through so much mindset training, and it's rare these anymore that I uncover anything new because I just my future daughter-in-law pointed it out this weekend because I said, if Rob gets a raise, I mean, when he gets a raise, like my mind naturally pivots and
Positive.
it corrects myself out loud. Like it just, I've been doing it for so long. And so I was just like, I don't want to read another thinking book. I need to do. So I was started reading it and I found myself in a negative space and I actually stopped at a prayer, like help me uncover something, whether it's new for me or something I need to read in a certain way so that I can help when I'm coaching others.
Well, and that's what I was thinking is it might be this all the same things you've already heard, but maybe it gets said in a different way where it clicks when it didn't click before.
Yeah.
And so, okay. Gina, you have any thoughts on what you're hoping to get out of this book?
I just want something that will make me act. You know, I'm like, Krista, you can read and read and read and read, and you just explode and you need a brain dump, but a brain dump will only come when you begin to act on what it is you
That's
found
true.
and heard.
That's true.
So,
well, and that's part of what I mentioned a moment ago about compiling the list of positive thoughts that I want to keep in my head and keep aware of on a daily basis, because I find like we just finished a couple weeks ago, we just finished the 5-second rule. And in my mind already, that's just in the distant past. And atomic habits, what was that? Because it's so far back there. So I want to go back through both of those books and add to my list of positive thoughts, which I'm going to use and my plan is, no, I'm going to use them. Not just my plan. I'm going to do this. Like daily affirmations. So, at the top of my list so far, I have God's mercies are new every morning. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. As one thinketh in his heart, so is he. And there is nothing either good or bad except that thinking makes it so.
You're up to start.
when we're doing that, we don't only proclaim it, we got to see it. Because if you don't see it, saying it is not going to do one thing. It's the visualization. As you say it, it's going to bring it to pass.
Right.
That's the biggest thing that I've been learning.
I recognize that a big part of my problem is negative mindset. And there've been a few things already, and I've only read chapter 1. A few things already that kind of like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for what I'm going to get out of this book. But as I say, I'm going to engage what I'm thinking about, what I'm reading, and not just read it and let it go, in one ear and out the other, so to speak. So, I know I had said to read the introduction and chapter 1. Did you read the preface? Did either of
Yes,
you read the,
I thought
okay.
it by introduction.
Well, yeah. And when I said it, I was thinking, I'm not sure it's called introduction, but the stuff in the front of the book.
Yeah.
Um, any particular takeaways from that? I even got good stuff from the preface. Like 2 of the quotes that were in my list that I just read to you, came from page 3 in the preface.
I think on page 2, I know this to be true from how many people I've coached, but second to last paragraph where it says, if thinking big accomplishes so much, why doesn't everyone think that way? And I've been asked that question many times. Here, I believe, is the answer. All of us, more than we recognize, are products of the thinking around us. And much of this thinking is little, not big. I think it really is. How did this people speak around you? Like I hear my children catch themselves the same way I do. And I know that it's because I verbally catch myself and my thinking, I switch my thoughts out loud. Even if it's already come out of my mouth, I fix it. And that has trained my children to do the same. You're a product of the environment, but it took a lot of changing because, as we've shared in the past, I mean, my mom was very like, rich people are bad, successful people are greedy, educated people think they're better than everybody else. Like I was raised to believe all these things that I so aspire to are negative. And so I first had to, that was what my environment was. And so you have to change. Make it.
Well, a few months ago, I had a conversation with my husband that I was, whoops, and there went my light. I'm working on rearranging it. That I had a conversation with my husband that I was reestablishing my goals and with regard to my business. And I told him that one of the things I needed was for him to stop being a bubble popper.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to say it. I mean, I think I've shared that with my husband, that he used to be really, really bad. And even Isaac, when he would hear Rob like naysaying my dreams or anybody's, what we would do in our house is just go, pop, pop, pop. So it didn't create an argument. It made Rob aware by us simply going pop, pop, pop. And now it's very rare that he does it, and he'll catch himself. He goes, oh, there I go, popping bubbles again. But we first had to have the conversation. Like, this is what you're doing. And you don't have
I've had to point it out to him in the moment, because when I told him that in the conversation, he didn't know what I was talking about. Well, and he even said, well, I'm not being a bubble popper. I'm just being realistic. Like, pop.
Yep. That was Rob's. And that's what they think. I recently read something, and I'm going to jack it up, the real quote, but basically it's that other people don't have to understand your calling that God has given you, because it wasn't a conference call.
That's true.
I like that.
It wasn't a conference. I don't have to understand it. Just don't be popping my bubbles.
Right.
Yeah.
I did also look when it was written, when he was talking about most people make 10,000 a year. I was like,
8. Yeah, that dated it pretty quickly.
5 years. All right.
I'm trying to keep this from reflecting in my glasses.
It looks good on our end.
Okay. And Lola has wedged herself into the chair behind me. Okay, so after the preface, then there's this section, what will this book do for you, which is still introductory.
Mhm.
Did either of you read all the way through that list, or did you just kind of gloss over it and say, yeah, this is what's coming in the book?
I just skipped it.
I skipped it. I did not read over it either.
Yeah.
I was tempted to do that, but then I decided to make an exercise of it. And I thought, okay, let me see what jumps out at me as something that I really feel like I need to pay attention to. And let me see if I can pick 3 things. And there wound up being 4 that as I was reading over the list, I literally went, ooh, that's me. Ooh, I need that. Ooh, I do that. And the things were defeat disbelief and the negative power it creates. Fight mind-freezing traditional thinking. Prevent small people from holding you back. And get the action habit. You don't need to wait until conditions are perfect.
I did see that one. I thought that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. So,
Because they'll
I
never
mean,
be perfect.
and it all looks good, but those 4 particularly jumped out at me as things that I recognize that I need going into this. So, okay, moving on then to chapter 1. Well, did you have, even though you didn't read the whole thing, were there anything that jumped off the page at you in the
I am
list?
towards the end where it said, coming up on page 268, accomplish your goals with this 30-day improvement guide. Because you know me, I like checklists. I like to do,
Okay, yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
I'm like that too, Christy, because I overthink things. And I at least feel if I have like a to-do list, it just makes me feel like I'm moving towards my goals. And
Yes.
I overthink everything. Okay, dream big. Okay, what does that mean? So hopefully this book will help me have that to-do list to dream big.
Yeah. Figure out exactly what steps to do.
I'm gonna share a reel in our group chat later. I just sent it to my mom yesterday, but it's a reel about what overthinking looks like.
Perfect.
Y'all will laugh. You'll laugh.
Yes, please share.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to chapter 1 then. I liked that, here again, of course, like you said, Christy, it's a mindset book, so it is going to be about the effect that our own thoughts have on us. But I just keep hearing it coming back to Emily Gibson's thought coaching. Everything is really just a circumstance, and we add meaning to it by what we think about it. On page 10, there's a quote I underlined right about in the middle of the page. It says, belief, the I'm positive I can attitude generates the power, skill, and energy needed to do. When you believe I can do it, the how to do it develops.
Yeah, I underline that as well.
I did too.
You know, it goes back to what we've talked about, I feel like, on every single book. And once you say something out loud, your brain goes to try to make it true. It goes
Yes.
to figure it out. So be careful what you think, be careful what you say, because your brain doesn't know the difference between true or false. It's going to go make happen. It wants to prove that you're smart and right and correct. You know,
It believes what we say before anybody else.
yeah. So,
Well, and your brain, I've a couple times attempted and not ever finished reading What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And he says in that book that your brain believes what you tell it.
mhm.
That if you say something or hear something often enough or enough times, your brain believes it. And that's part of what I'm struggling with right now in working on my mindset is recognizing how much I was told in my childhood and my youth, like up through high school, how much I was told to make myself smaller,
Mm-hmm.
and that you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or you're
Yeah.
not going to make any money doing that.
Yeah.
So that's what I think that's at least partially to blame for my disbelief, my lack of self-belief, and believing that I can be successful in this business, is that I got told so much that you can't. So I have this
You
belief
didn't
that
know any better than to change it.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You didn't know any better than to change those thoughts because you thought
Right.
that thought was right.
Well, when it's my parents telling me that,
Right.
yes.
That's all we all know.
Hmm.
Unless they were super duper, we've all got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, for sure.
My page numbers are off. And I
Yours are
haven't done anything to my book. And my chapter 1 begins on page 17.
Oh,
Mine begins on 9. Does your book look like this? That's so weird.
I know, I
maybe
don't
it's just
understand,
a
so I'm trying to
different
follow where y'all are, but it's okay.
All right, we're gonna
different
have
printing.
to add
Okay.
8 pages to everything for Gina whenever we're talking about page number. Gina, just make
Right.
a number that says add 8. So every time we give a page number.
I'll do that. I got it. Got it.
Okay.
All right.
So what were some of your takeaways from chapter 1?
Believe. That's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
it
is a
may be
choice.
contradictory to what we know, but what we know may not be right. So it's just, and I think it starts with believing in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't know how y'all
For
may
sure.
not have that challenge, but I do.
For
So,
sure.
Yeah, on number 12, page 12, so page 20 for you, Gina. I underlined that first sentence because I feel like working with so many people in my downline who hold on to the belief that I can't really promote Plexus products because I haven't lost the weight. I can't really promote the business because I haven't made a lot of money. I can't really do this because I haven't. But right, it says believing you can succeed makes others place confidence in you.
right.
So if you're coming from a place of confidence, if you're coming from a place of, hey, I know it can be done because I've watched people do it. Like, let's do it together.
Mm-hmm.
That and in confidence that you can do it, linking arms with somebody. Like
Right.
it's that you haven't ranked up a lot of earned income because you haven't linked arms with the right person yet to do it right alongside of you. Like if Deanna and I hadn't been doing it together, like I look at my points outside of her, and they're not huge. They're not huge. And so I know that without her jumping in with me in the very beginning, and so it's that person. So constantly being on the lookout of who you need to link arms with, because that one person can be a game changer to your business.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They'll pull the good out of you and help you in other ways.
Knowing that.
So I had that highlighted as well, but now talking about that one particular statement and believing you can succeed makes others place confidence in you. And what you just said, Christy, it kind of is it flips the script a little bit in the sense that you don't have to have already had success to promote it. Like you don't have to have this substantial weight loss journey to say that these products work. You don't have to say that you've made X amount of dollars to believe that the business works. You just have to believe that success is on the horizon and that you're working towards it and you're going to get there.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's a difference, because that's something that's always held me back. It's like, okay, I'm not taking the products consistently, so I can't promote it. I haven't been super successful with the business, so I can't promote it. So that's a good piece that's taken out. There's still more work to do on my end, but that kind of changes things a bit.
Yeah. And just truly knowing it's, you know, it's one tiny thing that can be added to your business that you don't know that's coming yet, that will change everything, you know. And you can be confident that it works because you've read, at this point, we've all read 4,000 million testimonies for 100 different things. We know the products work. We
Right.
have proof of what other people are making. Like, you can be confident in anything you say. It doesn't mean you've achieved it yet, but you can be confident sharing, you know,
That it is possible.
yeah, the 3 people that were above me, you know, I made the 4 people above me, between me and Erin Key, I made more than.
Wow.
And then 3 of them are gone now, and only 1 is there, and I make significantly more than her. So it is just, you can do it. You know, be confident that you can do it.
Well, and side note, that's one of these things that makes this not a pyramid scheme.
Correct.
The fact that you can outrank your people above you and
Yeah,
make more than the people above you.
When anybody ever says anything to me and I'm like, I earn more than the 4 people that were above me. So that's not a pyramid scheme. That's not me making a whole lot more money for everybody above me and me not making anything. That's, I worked harder, so I did better.
Right. So, okay, so the story, it's at the bottom of page 13, and it's just a very short story. A young fiction writer talked with me recently about her writing ambitions. The name of one of the top writers in her field came up. Oh, she said, Mr. X is a wonderful writer, but of course I can't be nearly as successful as he is. And I wrote right there, I need to stop doing this. Because I look at people who are successful in our business and I think, oh, but I'm not Sarah Marble. I'm not Jen Hawkins. I can't be Jen Hawkins.
No, but
I
you
don't
can
have to be
be
Jen
Angie.
Hawkins, but I can say that again, Abby.
You can be Angie.
Oh, Gina. Yeah, I can be Angie and I can be as successful. I need to
Yes, let's
stop
compare
discounting
them.
myself.
Well, one of the ones I shared in Gold Diggers, I don't know if you guys saw it, and it was specifically for that reason. Did you see where I shared everything that Jennifer Cobb did in March? I don't know if you did the math on it, and it's because of that, because I feel like those of us have been around are totally, we look at those people who were before us, who paved the foundation, and we're like, we could never be that. We could never do that. First of all, Sarah Marble is in the same Diamond Sprints thing I am, because she's been at a standstill for a long time. You know, Jen Hawkins and Celeste and Sonia Dudley and Helen, we look at them, we're like, we could never do that. But like Jennifer Cobb only started maybe 4 years ago, and very interesting looking, like not somebody like, look at those up on a pedestal and we're like, they're so gorgeous, they're so dynamic, so stunning. She did have a big Instagram following, but I'm fairly certain that her Instagram is all like home, making your home look clean and nice thing. So nothing related to health or anything. Her body shape is nothing that you would look at and go, wow, I wished I looked like her. And I don't remember all the exact numbers, but I did the math just on it. on the graphic, her upline shared how many points she had in March. And I did the math on the points that she earned, and it was over $42,000 just in points. That it was not her emerald, sapphire, or diamond pool money. And I know what the emerald and sapphire pool money is. I can't imagine what diamond is. So I was looking at that and I'm like, she easily made over $100,000 this month. And 3 or 4 years, and go look at the graphic. I mean, there's nothing, you would never look at that and go, I could never be Jennifer Cobb. I posted that one because I want everybody to look at that and go, I could totally be Jennifer Cobb.
I want to go back and relook at it. I looked at it, but I'm going to tell you, I glanced at it.
Yeah,
I'll
I
be
think
honest.
I did as well, and
But
didn't
that's-
really
that's why
digest it.
is because I'm like, anybody could be Jennifer Cobb. So, you know, but along what you were talking about with the book, the next part that I highlighted was there towards the end of 13, where he says the, okay, I'll give it a try, but I don't think it'll work attitude produces failures. Disbelief is negative power. When the mind disbelieves or doubts, the mind attracts reasons to support the disbelief. Same thing we keep talking about. This guy was talking about 65 years ago.
Yep.
It's going to look to prove you right. Whatever you think,
Right.
your brain will be like, oh.
Yeah. As a man thinketh. Well, and it reminds me also of Henry Ford quote, although I've learned recently that Henry Ford is not as to be admired as I once thought, but I grew up in Detroit.
But
my dad worked.
He just wasn't very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. The quote is whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
That is so true. And
Mhm.
obviously he lived it.
Well, and I said he wasn't very nice, but I should also say that from what I understand, Jeff Bezos is an ass. Steve Jobs was an ass. Elon Musk was an ass. So I think they just don't really care what anybody thinks. Could
Well,
it all? And they
interesting.
Speak more kindly, but I think typically people don't like being around people who don't care what anybody else thinks but them. But so don't be a jerk, but also maybe the lesson from it is don't care what anybody else thinks. Like do what you think to be successful and work regardless.
Be who you are in a nice way.
Yeah.
Well, and I actually went looking for, okay, is there truth in this? What's the deal with Henry Ford? And what I found is, yes, he was an anti-Semite, but, and not that this excuses that, but he did, one, I think he was pro-union, which is antithetical to the auto industry, management in the auto industry. But also that he championed the rights of his Black workers. So there's balance, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Again, not that I want to condone anti-Semitism, but it's like even those two seem in conflict with each other, that he was anti-Semitic and championed the rights of Black workers.
He's a minority up there. There's just no doubt about it. He was a minority. And to be able to do what he did, he obviously won their confidence. And obviously they saw something. And they still to this day, because that is still a huge, huge auto industry place, even though it's still Black. But he saw something that we don't see down here in the South, because they have a different mindset down here. The Southern Blacks would not make it in Michigan.
True. That's true. Yeah, I think you're onto something. But anyway, it's a quote that bubbles up for me often. Which ties back into the book at the bottom of page 14. A person is a product of his own thoughts.
Mhm. And all you gotta do is look around you and it'll be very obvious.
Okay.
I agree. I used to tell myself that I can't, like I'm not a salesperson. I can't negotiate this, that, and the other. And my ex-husband was a sales guy. And so we would always joke that there's only one salesperson per family. But when push came to shove and I had to negotiate a new car deal, I was able to step up to the plate and just get it taken care of. So I think
Mhm.
sometimes too, when you're put in a position where you have no other choice, sometimes you rise to the occasion. But I had to do some soul searching before that and just say, okay, well, why do I feel like I can't negotiate things? Is it because I've been told this for X amount of years? Yeah. And so I figured out how I did my research. I looked at things and I was able to do it. And I was comfortable if this deal didn't work out, walking away and finding something else because I knew what I could afford, what I couldn't. But that was a learning lesson for me. And I'd actually asked a friend to kind of help me take care of that, like set up a new car deal. And that car deal fell through. And so now I'm like, oh, this was a blessing in disguise because it taught me the lesson that I don't have to believe what I've been told for so many years. And so I'm just sharing that story because you're right. We do get conditioned to act out what we've been told or what we think, but you can
Mhm.
change it.
For sure. Yeah, I got told a lot growing up that I have a sharp tongue. And so I'm thinking I overlearned that I have to be nice.
Yes. Yes. I've been told many times that it's been implied that I can be a bitch, to
Mhm.
use such a nice word. So a lot of times I don't say I don't like conflict because and I don't like to stand up for myself because I've been told so many times that I'm a bitch. And so I don't know if I've ever really learned how to handle conflict correctly or if I'm just like wounded for lack of a better term, and that's just what I've been telling myself is because it's been told to me for so long that now it's a sensitive subject, so now I don't approach things and I don't
Mhm.
address things that bother me because I don't want to be told I'm a bitch anymore.
Same. Same. Yeah, that's exactly my experience. Um, but even like, okay, so I had a rental property that I sold a year ago. It was my townhouse that I purchased before my husband and I got married, and I sold it last year. And there were instances in dealing with the tenant where I had to tell my husband, "You handle this because I'm too nice." And my husband is a businessman and he's in management and he's used to having to tell people straight on, this is how it's going to be.
And he knows how to say
Um,
it.
and the same thing in dealing with the ladies who come in to clean my house. I can't bring myself to tell them, I really don't care for it when you blah, blah, blah. Would you please do it this way? And they're cleaning my house, but my brain wants to tell me, well, if you don't like how they're doing it, do it yourself. But I'm paying them to do a job for me. So I should be able to tell them, please do it this way. So,
We
Yes,
fascinating
but you're
are saying that I was the same way, like ever since I don't know how little I was when my mom started telling me that I was a bitch. Like, like there's not another word to say because that's the word that she used my whole life, and still uses it. But what's interesting is that I was the opposite. I just owned it. And I always have stood up for myself and been a little more outspoken. And sometimes it's taken me probably, we were just talking about it recently as a family, like only in the last maybe 7 or 8 years to tone it down, to be kinder with my words, to be more considerate with my words, because in my mind, I was like, I am. I didn't shy away from it and try not to be it. I owned it. And I could many times be very ugly and being like, I think the switch for me was when I realized everybody didn't need my opinion. I would save it for when they asked, because I used to let everybody know what my opinion was, especially when they were doing things wrong. So it's interesting how it could go, the same exact scenario can go either. That tells you like, hey, there's a medium. You know, I had to learn to not be so ugly.
Well, and there are areas in my life where I have owned being a bitch. Like sometimes in the classroom. You know, more so dealing with students I didn't know in the hallway when they were doing something they shouldn't be doing. Or I had more than once over my career, I would have students say something to me like, nobody likes you. And I was like, nah, I'm not here to make friends. So.
And you didn't.
Actually, I did. I do have students who were former students who I now consider friends. Excuse me. But some of them just respected that I had to have boundaries. And then some didn't respect that I had to have boundaries. So anyway, so beginning on page 20, there are steps listed here for how to develop the power of belief. And this is part of why I have to take a more active role in the books that we're reading, because I had read this last week. And then when I was looking at it again this morning, I was like, I don't even remember that I read this, except I underlined stuff in it. So I need to more actively engage in the steps that it's giving me. So first, think success, don't think failure. When you face a difficult situation, think I'll win, not I'll probably lose. Always think I can do it rather than I can't. Remind yourself regularly that you are better than you think you are. And that's one I definitely need to take to heart. Oh, stop it. Sorry. Believe big. The size of your success is determined by the size of your belief. So, yes, I definitely need to believe bigger than I do. Thoughts on any of that?
Just a choice. Keep looking at it and, really ponder it as you look at it. Don't just brush it off. It's something that you're not going to get it the first time. But I think the more we, there's a difference between meditating and just reading. And I think this is definitely a page to be meditated on. Because this will set the stage for the rest of what we're going to be reading.
Well, and I've heard Genevieve say this, and Christy has mentioned that Genevieve says this, and I've heard somebody else mention that Genevieve says this, that when she reads a book, she reads it 7 times.
Yes, you at least need to read that much. Yes.
And I'm starting to think, not starting to think, I'm thinking yet again that I need to be doing similar, reading more than once. Like,
Did she
maybe
phrase?
over the course of a week, say we have a chapter to cover, read that chapter every day
Right.
Yeah.
for 7
Makes a
days.
difference. It'll look different in
I
2
don't-
days.
I don't know. I may try that. And that relates to a question that I want to ask before we get off of here, but after we finish talking about chapter 1. So, but I will also be adding, remind yourself regularly that you are better than you think you are to my list of morning affirmations.
Good.
It's underlined. See,
Right.
I like at the end of page 21, where he says, we need from every man who aspires to leadership for himself and his company a determination to undertake a personal program of self-development. Nobody is going to order a man to develop. Whether a man lags behind or moves ahead in his specialty is a matter of his own personal application. This is something which takes time, work, and sacrifice. Nobody can do it for you. Basically just saying nobody can deal with any of our head trash or any of our or any of that. Like, we each have to do the own work in ourselves to have the confidence, to have everything we need to succeed. We've got to do it ourselves. Nobody can do it for us.
right. Well, and in reading that paragraph, I heard Bob Heilig in my head saying that network marketing is a personal development with a comp plan attached.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the 80s, back in the 80s, my mom became a Mary Kay consultant. And she started reading professional development books, Norman Vincent Peale and the like, how to win friends and influence people, etc. So I think it's accurate. And I have grown a lot in terms of my emotional intelligence, because I used to cry when somebody told me no. And now it's like, yeah, they just mean not right now.
Yeah. That's
move
progress.
on.
That's great
Mhm.
progress.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. Anything else from chapter 1? Because I have a couple questions I want to ask about how to move forward. First of all, I just found my notes. They were stuck to the front of the other book.
That's a great place for them.
This has nothing to do with your question, but what is y'all's page number for beginning chapter 2? I'm going to
25.
renumber. 25? Okay.
25.
All right. I'm going to redo my pages. Okay, now I can go on. I'm listening.
Okay, well, and here's a question also, Gina. At the bottom of page 22, what's the last sentence? Because I'm wondering if the pagination is just entirely different, or if it's the same pagination and just numbered differently. The last, on the first page of chapter 2, at the bottom of the page, the first paragraph begins with study the lives.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it ends with the successful person.
Yes.
Okay. So the pagination is probably the same. It's just
somebody screwed up the
they're
numbers.
numbered differently. Like maybe there's more introductory material in your book or something. Maybe they've got more pages of author reviews or something in the front of the book. I did just remember another question I wanted to ask out of chapter 1 before we go into my questions about proceeding. At the bottom of page 23, I underlined this part. Here are 2 special suggestions to help you make yourself a trained observer. Select for special study the most successful and the most unsuccessful person you know. And then as the book unfolds, observe how closely your successful friend adheres to the success principles. So that's a piece I intend to implement. So I got this workbook, and I don't know, it has in the workbook for each chapter, it has a chapter summary, key lessons, and then it has self-reflection questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 self-reflection questions to go with chapter 1. Would you like me to share the self-reflection questions with you, say,
Yes, please.
the week prior to the chapter, so that you could do that along with the reading?
That would be awesome. Putting
yes.
those in.
Because it does give space for responding to the questions, but it also says, or you may choose to use a journal, because like if you, I don't know, maybe that's not enough space for one of the questions, that you could just use a journal. So
What's the name of your book?
it's workbook for for the magic of
Oh,
thinking big, and the
okay.
author is, well, the author is Joe Reeds, because there were a couple different ones on Amazon, but
Ah,
the description of this
good.
one, well, I mean, because anybody can pick up a book and then decide they want to write a companion book to go with it.
I can do a cliff note. You're right.
It is kind of a Cliff's Notes, but then it also has the self-reflection questions. And I think later on, maybe there's going to be some activities. Because that's what it seemed to suggest in the description. I think that was what drew me to it, was the self-reflection questions and activities for implementation. Okay, so there are 13 chapters in this book. Do we want to try to do 2 chapters a week, or do we want to just do 1 a week?
I think 1 week is fine for me if I'm really going to pick up what it is, but I'll go with what everybody else goes along with.
Looks like
But
each
there's so much to.
looks like they're each about 25 pages long.
Okay,
You know, where it's
So-
sometimes chapters and they're like 10, 11 pages. I feel like if
Okay.
it looks like they're pretty consistently 20 to 25 pages long.
okay, that's a significant chunk of reading.
I
I mean,
think
it's
so.
not huge, but to try and double that in a week, plus do any kind of self-reflection questions.
Yeah,
Just-
I agree. 1 chapter per week for what my opinion is worth. I like what you said, Angie, about how you were talking about I think it was Sarah Marbles or whoever it was that reads a book 7 times. I like the
Oh,
idea of reading the same chapter multiple times. So I'd like to try to play around with seeing if I could, even if I read the same chapter twice in 1 week, at least trying to start playing around with that to
Okay.
make sure I'm really absorbing what is being told. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Okay. Actually, it was Genevieve Scory
Yeah, she
Oh,
listened to it on Audible.
reads a book.
Yeah,
I'm
she listened.
horrible about listening to Audible. Like, I feel like I can't ever tune in to, like, I don't walk away thinking, oh yes, I know exactly what I just listened to.
Mhm. Audible works for me with fluff reads. If I'm reading trash fiction, chick lit specifically is my, that's my fluff.
I'm not-
Fiction works for me. I don't do well with nonfiction and Audible.
So I can do
Now, possibly as a reinforcement. I'm sorry, Christy, I keep cutting you off.
I was gonna say I'm the Audible queen. You know, multiple books a week, but I only will do my nonfiction audibles if I'm in a non-distracted spot. So like walking. Like my other audibles are going all the time when I'm doing laundry, doing dishes, have other things going on, because you can miss a little bit and it's fiction. But I only will do my personal development books, like if I'm walking or in a spot where I really tune in. That's the way that I juggle both of them if I'm doing one with no distractions.
Yeah. Well, and especially I highlight stuff and I make notes in the margins and I relate it to other things I've read or seen or whatever. And I can't do that on Audible.
No.